My kids pressured me to sell my house after my wife's death, then I uncovered their true motives and turned the tables on them. Hi, I'm Tom, 68M. I've been married to my wife Sarah, 65F, for 45 years. We met in college and got married right after graduation. Sarah was the love of my life, my best friend, and my rock. She passed away 3 months ago after a 2-year battle with breast cancer. It's been really hard for me to cope without her. We have 2 children, Mark, 40M, and Lisa, 38F. Mark is married to Jenny, 38F, and they have 2 kids, Emily, 10F, and Jack, 8M. Lisa is married to Paul, 39M, and they have 1 child, Sophie, 6F. Both my kids live in the same city as me, about 30 minutes away. Sarah and I lived in our family home for 40 years. It's a big house with 4 bedrooms, a large yard, and lots of memories. We bought it when Mark was born and spent our whole lives here. Sarah loved gardening and the backyard is full of her flowers and plants. She spent hours out there, tending to her roses and vegetables. It was her happy place. I work as a high school history teacher. Well, I used to. I retired last year to take care of Sarah full-time when her cancer got worse. Sarah was an elementary school teacher. We both loved our jobs and the impact we had on our students' lives. After Sarah died, I was struggling to take care of the house by myself. It's a lot of work for one person, especially at my age. The yard work alone is overwhelming. Mark and Lisa started coming over more often to help out. At first, I was grateful for their support. It was nice to have them around, and the grandkids' visits always cheered me up. About a month ago, Mark and Lisa sat me down for a talk. They said they were worried about me living alone in such a big house. They suggested I should sell the house and move into a smaller place that would be easier to manage. They talked about how I could use the money from the sale for my retirement or to travel, something Sarah and I had always wanted to do but never got around to. I wasn't sure about this idea. I told them I needed time to think about it. The house holds so many memories of Sarah and our life together. I didn't want to leave it. Every corner of this place reminds me of her, from the kitchen where we'd cook together, to the living room where we'd watch our favorite shows, to the bedroom where I held her hand during her final days. A week later, Mark called me and said he'd found the perfect solution. There was a small house for sale near his home. It was a 1-bedroom place with a tiny yard. He said it would be ideal for me. It was close to his family, so I could see the grandkids more often, and it would be much easier to maintain. I went to see the house with Mark. It was nice enough, but it felt so small compared to our family home. I told Mark I wasn't sure if I wanted to move. The idea of downsizing was appealing in some ways, but I couldn't imagine leaving the home Sarah and I had built together. That's when things started to get weird. Mark and Lisa began pressuring me to sell the house. They kept talking about how much money I could get for it in the current market. They said I should put the money in savings for my retirement. They even brought up the idea of using some of the money to help them with their mortgages or the grandkids' college funds. I started to feel uncomfortable with how pushy they were being. I told them I needed more time to decide, but they wouldn't let up. Every time they visited, the conversation would somehow turn to selling the house. They'd point out things that needed fixing or updating, implying that it was too much work for me. Last week, I overheard Mark and Lisa talking when they thought I was upstairs. They were discussing how to divide up the furniture and valuables from the house. Lisa was saying she wanted Mom's antique dining set, and Mark was arguing that he should get Dad's old car. They were talking about it like it was already decided. I was shocked. They were already planning to take everything, as if I'd agreed to sell the house. I confronted them about it, and they tried to backtrack. They said they were just planning for the future, in case I decided to sell. But I could tell there was more to it. They seemed annoyed that I'd overheard them. Mark made a comment about how I needed to start thinking about the future and not living in the past. He said it would be selfish of me to hold on to such a big house when I could help set up my grandkids' futures. Lisa chimed in, saying that Mom would have wanted me to move on and enjoy my retirement. I'm starting to feel like my kids are more interested in getting their hands on the house and everything in it than they are in my well-being. They keep talking about how much everything is worth and how I don't need all this space. It's like they're seeing dollar signs instead of the home their mother and I built together. Yesterday, Lisa came over with some real estate brochures for retirement communities. She said maybe I should consider moving into one of those instead of a small house. She talked about how they have activities and social events, and how I wouldn't have to worry about cooking or cleaning. I told her I'm not ready for that kind of move, but she kept pushing. I'm feeling really torn. On one hand, the house is a lot to manage on my own. The stairs are getting harder to climb, and the yard work is exhausting. On the other hand, it's full of memories of Sarah and our life together. I'm not ready to let that go. This is where we raised our children, where we celebrated holidays and milestones. It's where Sarah spent her last days, surrounded by the things and people she loved. I'm also hurt by how my kids are behaving. It feels like they're more concerned about what they can get out of the situation than how I'm feeling. I raised them better than this. Sarah and I always taught them to be caring and considerate, but right now, they're acting like vultures circling their prey. I keep thinking about what Sarah would want. She always said home is where the heart is, but my heart feels broken without her. Would she want me to stay in this big empty house, or would she want me to downsize and be closer to the grandkids? I just don't know. I've tried talking to my sister, Jane, 70F, about this. She lives in another state, but we talk on the phone regularly. She thinks I should stand my ground if I'm not ready to move. She reminded me that grief takes time and that I shouldn't make any big decisions right now. I've also confided in my best friend, Bob, 67M. We've known each other since high school and he's been a great support since Sarah passed. He lost his wife a few years ago, so he understands what I'm going through. He suggested I might want to talk to a grief counselor to help me sort through my feelings. I'm worried about how this situation is affecting my relationship with my kids. We used to be so close. Mark and I would go fishing together, and Lisa and I had a weekly lunch date. Now, every interaction feels tense and uncomfortable. I miss the easy relationship we used to have. I'm also concerned about the example this is setting for my grandkids. I don't want them to think it's okay to pressure elderly relatives or to be more concerned with inheritance than with family bonds. Sarah and I always tried to teach our kids the value of family and memories over material things. I don't know what to do. Should I stand my ground and keep the house? Should I give in and move to the smaller place? How do I deal with my kids' behavior? I'm still grieving for Sarah and now I have to deal with this too. Part of me wants to just sell everything and move far away, start fresh somewhere new. But I know that's just the grief and frustration talking. This is my home, my community. I have friends here, a life that Sarah and I built together. I'm also worried about my financial situation. I have my teacher's pension and some savings, but I'm not sure if it's enough to maintain this house long term. Sarah and I had planned for our retirement together, but now those plans have changed. I don't want to be a burden on my kids in the future, but I also don't want to be pressured into decisions I'm not ready to make. Any advice would be appreciated. How do I navigate this situation with my kids? How do I know what the right decision is about the house? And how do I honor Sarah's memory while also moving forward with my life? I feel lost and overwhelmed, and I miss my wife more than ever. Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post. A lot has happened, and I wanted to give you all an update. First, thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. Your advice and support meant a lot to me during this difficult time. After reading your comments, I decided to stand my ground about the house. I told Mark and Lisa that I wasn't ready to sell and that I wanted to stay in our family home for now. They weren't happy about it, but they seemed to accept my decision. I thought that would be the end of it, at least for a while. However, things took an unexpected turn a few days later. My neighbor, Bill, came over to chat. We've lived next door to each other for 30 years and often have coffee together. He mentioned that he'd seen a moving truck in front of my house the day before. I was confused because I hadn't ordered any moving services. I asked Bill for more details, and he said he saw Mark and Lisa supervising some movers who were taking furniture out of the house. He assumed I knew about it and was just clearing out some old stuff. He even commented on how nice it was that my kids were helping me declutter. I was shocked. I hadn't given them permission to remove anything from the house. I immediately called Mark to confront him about it. He tried to play it off, saying they were just helping me declutter. But when I pressed him, he admitted they had taken some furniture to put in storage. I was furious. I demanded they bring everything back immediately. Mark tried to argue, saying they were just trying to help me downsize. He said the house was too cluttered and that getting rid of some things would make it easier for me to manage. But I stood firm and told him if they didn't return everything, I'd report it as theft. Lisa called me later that day, crying. She said they were just trying to help and that they thought I'd be happier in a smaller place without all the reminders of Mom. She talked about how hard it was for her to see me living alone in the big house, surrounded by Mom's things. I told her that wasn't their decision to make. The next day, the moving truck came back and returned all the furniture. As I watched them unload everything, I noticed that some small items were missing. Some of Sarah's jewelry and a few valuable knickknacks weren't there. These were things Sarah and I had collected over the years, each with its own special memory attached. When I confronted Mark about the missing items, he got defensive. He said Mom had promised those things to him and Lisa years ago. I don't remember Sarah ever saying anything like that, and even if she had, it wasn't their right to just take them without asking me. This whole situation has made me realize that I can't trust my kids as much as I thought I could. They were willing to go behind my back and remove things from my house without my permission. It's really shaken my faith in them. I've decided to take some precautions. I've changed the locks on the house and installed a security system. I've also started documenting all the valuable items in the house, just in case. It breaks my heart that I have to do this, but I feel like I need to protect myself and Sarah's memories. I'm still grieving for Sarah, and now I have to deal with this betrayal from my children. It's been incredibly difficult. But I'm determined to stand my ground and protect what Sarah and I built together. I've also reached out to some of my old friends and joined a grief support group at the local community center. It's been helpful to talk to other people who understand what I'm going through. Bob, my best friend, has been especially supportive. He's been coming over more often, helping me with house repairs and just keeping me company. For now, I'm focusing on taking care of myself and the house. I've started working in Sarah's garden again. It makes me feel close to her, and I want to keep her flowers blooming. I've even started learning more about gardening. I was never very good at it before, but now it feels like a way to connect with Sarah. I've also been spending more time with my grandkids. I don't want this situation with their parents to affect my relationship with them. We've been having weekend sleepovers, and I've been teaching them some of the card games Sarah and I used to play. It's been a bright spot in all of this mess. I'm not sure what the future holds with Mark and Lisa. I love them, but I'm hurt by their actions. I'm hoping that with time, we can work through this. But for now, I'm keeping my distance and focusing on healing. I've been thinking a lot about what Sarah would say if she were here. She always was the peacemaker in our family. I think she'd be disappointed in how the kids are behaving, but she'd also encourage me to keep the lines of communication open. I'm trying to find a balance between protecting myself and not completely shutting out my children. It's hard, especially when I'm still dealing with the grief of losing Sarah. There are days when I just want to curl up in bed and not deal with any of this. But I know Sarah wouldn't want that for me. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm learning to cook for myself, something Sarah always handled. I'm terrible at it, but I'm improving. I've even started having dinner parties with some of my friends from the neighborhood. It's not the same as when Sarah was here, but it's helping me feel less lonely. I'm also considering volunteering at the local animal shelter. Sarah and I always talked about doing that when we retired. It feels like a way to honor her memory and keep myself busy. As for the house, I'm still not ready to sell. But I am thinking about the future. Maybe in a year or two, I'll feel differently. For now, though, this is my home, and I'm staying put. Thank you all again for your support and advice. It means more than you know. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and I have some surprising news to share. After the incident with the moving truck, I decided to do some investigating. Something about the whole situation didn't sit right with me, especially Mark and Lisa's insistence on selling the house. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than they were letting on. I contacted our family lawyer, Jim, who's been handling our affairs for years. Sarah and I trusted him completely, and he's always given us good advice. I asked him if he knew anything about why my kids might be so eager to sell the house. What he told me was shocking. Apparently, Sarah had made some changes to our will about a year before she passed away. She had told Jim not to mention it to anyone, including me, unless something happened to her. The changes stipulated that if the house was sold within a year of her death, the proceeds would be split equally between Mark and Lisa. If the house wasn't sold, everything would go to me as originally planned. I was stunned. Sarah had never mentioned this to me. Jim explained that Sarah had been worried about my financial security after she was gone. She thought that if the kids had an incentive to help me downsize, I'd be better off in the long run. She was always thinking ahead, my Sarah. But Sarah didn't know how Mark and Lisa would twist her intentions. They weren't trying to help me, they were trying to cash in on their inheritance early. I felt betrayed all over again. I confronted Mark and Lisa about this. At first, they tried to deny it, but when I told them I'd spoken to Jim, they broke down and admitted everything. They said they were in financial trouble, Mark's business was failing, and Lisa's husband had lost his job. They saw the house as a way to solve their problems. I was hurt and angry. Not only had they tried to manipulate me out of my home, but they'd kept their financial troubles from me. If they had just been honest and asked for help, I would have done what I could for them. We could have figured something out together, as a family. This revelation has changed everything. I've decided to stay in the house, at least for now. It's where I feel closest to Sarah, and I'm not ready to give that up. Plus, I don't want to reward my children's manipulative behavior. As for Mark and Lisa, I've told them I need some space. I love them, but their actions have damaged our relationship. I've made it clear that any future financial discussions will go through Jim, and that my house and possessions are not up for grabs. I'm still processing all of this. It's a lot to take in, especially while I'm still grieving for Sarah. But in a way, I'm grateful. This has been a wake-up call, reminding me that I need to take charge of my own life and decisions. I've started looking into financial planning for myself. I want to make sure I'm secure for the future, without having to rely on selling the house. I'm also considering setting up trusts for my grandchildren's education. I want to help them, but in a way that I control. I'm focusing on healing and moving forward. I've started volunteering at the local animal shelter. Sarah always wanted us to do that together when we retired. It feels good to be doing something positive, and it's helping me meet new people and stay active. I've also been spending more time with my sister Jane. She came to visit for a week, and it was really good to have her here. We went through some of Sarah's things together, sharing memories and laughing about old times. It was bittersweet, but it helped me feel closer to Sarah. Jane suggested that I might want to consider renting out a room in the house. It would provide some extra income and company. I'm not sure about it yet, but I'm thinking it over. It might be nice to have someone else around, especially in the evenings when the house feels the quietest. As for my relationship with Mark and Lisa, it's still strained. We've had a few conversations, mostly over the phone. They've apologized for their behavior, but I'm having a hard time trusting them. I've told them I need time to process everything. I've been spending more time with my grandkids, though. I don't want them to suffer because of the issues I'm having with their parents. We've been having weekend visits, and I'm teaching them how to garden. It's been healing for me, and I think Sarah would be proud. I don't know what the future holds for my relationship with my children, but I'm hopeful that with time and honest communication, we can rebuild some of what we've lost. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time, cherishing the memories of Sarah and the life we built together in this home. Update 3. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have progressed. After the revelations about Sarah's will and my children's motivations, I took some time to really think about what I wanted for my future. I realized that while I love our family home, it was becoming a burden to maintain on my own. I decided to sell the house, but on my own terms. I hired a real estate agent and got a fair market valuation. The house sold quickly, and for a good price. As per Sarah's will, the proceeds were split between Mark and Lisa. Before you think I gave in to their demands, let me explain. I used my half of the money to buy a comfortable 2-bedroom condo in a nice area of town. It's much easier to manage, but still has enough space for when the grandkids visit. I've even set up a small balcony garden in memory of Sarah. The condo is in a community with other retirees, which has been great. I've made some new friends and there are always activities going on. I'm not lonely like I was in the big house, but I still have my privacy when I want it. As for Mark and Lisa, the money seems to have solved their immediate financial problems. But our relationship is still strained. We're talking again, but it's not the same as before. Trust takes a long time to rebuild. I've made it clear to them that my new home and my remaining assets are mine to do with as I please. I've updated my will, with Jim's help, to ensure there's no room for manipulation in the future. I've also set up college funds for my grandchildren that I control. The most positive change has been in my own life. I've become more involved in my community. I'm still volunteering at the animal shelter, and I've joined a local seniors group that organizes outings and activities. I'm making new friends and staying active. I've also started traveling a bit. Sarah and I always talked about seeing more of the world when we retired, and I've decided to honor that dream. I took a trip to the Grand Canyon last month, somewhere Sarah always wanted to go. It was bittersweet, but I felt like she was there with me in spirit. I've kept some of Sarah's most precious belongings, including her jewelry and some family heirlooms. I plan to pass these down to my grandchildren when they're older, along with the stories and memories attached to them. As for Mark and Lisa, we're working on rebuilding our relationship. They've apologized for their behavior, and I believe they're sincere. We have family dinners once a month now. It's not perfect, but it's a start. I'm also spending more time with my grandkids, which has been wonderful. I miss Sarah every day, but I'm learning to live my life fully again. I know that's what she would have wanted for me. I'm grateful for the life we had together, and I'm doing my best to make the most of the years I have left. This experience has taught me a lot about standing up for myself and making my own decisions. It hasn't been easy, but I feel stronger for having gone through it. I'm looking forward to whatever the future holds, on my own terms. To anyone else going through a similar situation, my advice would be to take your time making big decisions, especially after a loss. Don't let anyone pressure you into something you're not comfortable with. And remember, it's okay to put yourself first sometimes.